Right, Leia, it's great to have you on the podcast today. How you doing?
Really good. Thanks for having me.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. And yeah, it's pretty interesting because we originally met in New York, didn't we? I was with my friend, and you was your friends, and we ended up like just chatting in the hall in Statue of Liberty, or something like that.
Yeah, there was like a restaurant. There's a restaurant at the base, kind of afterwards, where you're walking
Yeah,
around. And they have, I don't know what it is about the way that it's set up in there, but they have like these tables where you have to stand around, and there's just these giant benches. And I think
yeah, I
that's
remember
where
that.
yeah.
Yeah, there was like nowhere to sit, and I remember there was like a table that was kind of built into the wall, but there was no seats. And there was like a couple of seats, and it was like, oh, that's the only
Yeah.
space we'd go. Yeah, it's an amazing place, but like a very strange place at the same time.
Definitely poor seating arrangements.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely.
That's a suggestion box.
Yeah, yeah. So send an email.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. But yeah, I just want to kind of like get into like, kind of what you do and kind of how you got into it. Because like when we touched base that time, recently you mentioned like you help like teenagers and things like that, who have like kind of behavior things going on.
Yeah, so I work with troubled trauma youth. I guess trouble slash trauma, sometimes trouble trauma. I don't know, kind of
Mm,
just. A lot of times it's both. A lot of the so technically speaking, our company has a thing, an umbrella company where we try to split off into certain groups. So sometimes we have kids in our area that, like for instance, we have some boys in our area that struggle with like some sexual issues, and so they need to be kind of sent and removed from our community just so that they can work through what they're going through, which is
mm,
a different section of where we work, which is originally where I started.
mm,
And then I moved over to our crisis shelter slash group home, where we help troubled and trauma kids, kind of ages 11 through 17, sort of work through familial problems, as well as just like, I think, individual issues. And
mm,
all those issues kind of, there's a broad range. Spectrum is from, kids that struggle with depression and don't know they have depression to kids
mm.
that have parents that have literally abused them. So,
Yeah. There's like different ends of the spectrum with like working with different people in different areas, and I think it's really rewarding and really nice that you have that set up in place for people who are going through those things in life, to support them and help them and kind of mentor and like kind of rehabilitate in some way. Would you say?
yeah. Yeah, I think it's our area is super unique in that we recognized early on as a community that we were really small. So anything that happened in our community was going to deeply impact the people around them. And because these kids are, basically the next generation that's going to grow up, get married, and have their own kids, or not get married, but just have their own kids, and they're going to be the ones that are teaching their kids. If we don't sort of come around them and help them in areas where they need help, they're just going to flounder and it's just going to get worse. So to keep our community safe, really, and in a healthy mindset, it's
Mm,
super, super necessary. And especially our area is super, what is it? We're like one of the number one places in the United States for, I think, suicide rates between ages 11 and 17. So really, really.
gosh. So I mean, it's definitely vital that there is something in place, like what you're doing, and the people that you work with to facilitate that, just prevent that from happening, isn't it?
Oh yeah. And it's super rewarding when you're able to help a kid realize. I think half the time too is just because you're in such a small community. Anything at all can set a kid off, and if those kids can't find an outlet in somebody that actually cares about them enough to have a conversation with them, they'll essentially fall through the cracks. And that's probably why. I mean, also because our winters are just so long. We have 7 months of winter and it just never stops.
Yeah, that's insane. That's pretty tough.
Yeah.
because
Long.
especially in the States, you know, like the winters there are pretty mental. Like I remember, like in New York in January when I met you, like it was ridiculous how cold it was. Like coming from England, like we get it. It's pretty cold here, but I mean, like there was like -17 or something like that some days, and
Yeah. And it is funny you say that though, because I came from it being so cold that when I came to New York, I was like, wow, it's warm here. That was the difference.
wow,
Yeah.
that's insane. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? And it's like when it's cold though, I suppose, especially now with COVID probably as well, you know, where are these kids going to go? You know, like do you think there's that you've noticed that those challenges as well? Like yeah.
Our numbers are pretty steady each year, where we'll kind of see an influx of kids struggling at the beginning of the school year. It took a little bit longer this year since our kids are at home, but it happened sort of overnight. We went from having 2 kids to having 9 in the span of like 3 days. And our capacity is 10. So the fact that we pretty much filled up within 3 or 4 days was pretty shocking. And we've, cycled through. We have a pretty steady group of like 8 or 9 at a time now. So I've recognized too that I think there's a lot more parents that are recognizing something's wrong because they're home now. So you have kids that maybe that would have sort of slipped by us, kids that'll just go out and get high all the time and they don't know how to, function with other people around, that their parents are seeing it now and they're going, fix my kid.
Yeah.
A lot of that.
That's it. I mean, it's a difficult age, isn't it? Especially as a teenager, because you're going through a lot of changes. You're finding yourself. You're trying to, work out what it is that you probably want to do in life. Social groups, identity, and especially, if you're going through something like some of the things you mentioned, it's difficult, and it's, I bet it's pretty rewarding when you see people, grow and change and like develop, from coming to your like, what to call it, center.
Yeah, and this is the interesting part is some of the kids that we do have are only with us for 30 days. So we have 30 days to try to help however we can. Most of the time we can't make massive changes. And one of our biggest sort of ideologies that we sort of put into the kids is they're in charge of their decisions. We're not in charge of that. We can tell them, don't do these things, don't do those things, but they're not going to learn if we're hovering over them, sort of like a helicopter parent or like a cop, and basically just being like, no, you can't do this. And all it's going to do is teach them to be better liars. So the idea is we try to let them make those mistakes in a safe environment where they can, sneak a vape in or a jewel in or whatever. And we catch them because, they're not nearly as sneaky as they think they are. And we catch them and they stare at us like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? And, there's a moment of just looking at them like, what do you want to happen next? You get to decide, and helping them recognize that they are in control of what happens next is huge. And so just even being able to plant the seed in their mind of, when they leave and go home, that, in a moment of just like fury or rage or upset or whatever, they can think back and go, oh my gosh, she's right. Like I am in control of that. And they hear it, 1.5 million times from all of us collectively. So if it doesn't stick, it's, it's shocking. But that's what we try to at least plant a seed, make a difference where we can.
Yeah, that's it. And I think that's like the important thing that you mentioned, trying to get the people, the teenage, the kids to realize that, they are in control of their lives and it is down to them. And it ultimately kind of builds that independence probably in them as a person, that, that it's up to them what decisions they make.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. Some of the kids come in, recognizing that they're not with us because of anything, quote unquote, they did. Some of the kids that we've had have had parents in prison, and so they're with us quite quite literally because of nothing they did. They have their own sets of issues and they have things like that, but they weren't brought to us because of something they did. So for them to hear that they're in control of those things is huge, because very more often than not, they'll fall into a victim mindset of, oh, I'm the product of whatever happens around me and it's just the way life goes. Being able to say to them, like, no, you get to choose. You might not be the one that's signing the paperwork or choosing literally what you're doing, but on a day-to-day basis, you get to pick, how you respond to all of this. You get to choose what you want, and if you can communicate it, more than likely the people that are there to help you are going to try to meet those needs.
Yeah, no, that's it. And it's like, those, it just shows you how important it is for them to have, like a good role model or people around them. Because, like I said, if these people are around certain kinds of people who are dabbling in certain things, they might get hooked into those crowds or those groups because, like, the kind of people you surround yourself with, you kind of become like them. And, I definitely noticed that when I was in school. You're around certain people, you get hooked into those groups, and you're doing, before you know it, you're doing stuff that they're doing, and you're people pleasing and everything else. So, I mean, it's good that you have what you're doing in place for them to go to, because it gets them away from that. Plus, they're around people who are there to help them and mentor them, and like, you can be their role models as well.
And we try to at least model behavior that is sustainable for them long term. We try to show them that we're also just people, that we're not, because there's, like I said, it's a balancing act. It really, really is. And it really just depends on each kid. But some of them will look at us like, we're a parent figure, which we're not. We're not that kind of a institution. That's not what we're doing. So they'll look at us that way. And so, we'll drop a swear word and they stare at us like we've just, like a chicken's coming out of our mouth. The world just happened. Like, we're so confused, So we try to show that the relationship that we're building is sustainable long term, and that it's possible to do that same, that create that same interaction, create that same relationship with somebody their age. That everybody's just a person, and we sort of break it all down for them that way.
I think that's really important. You mentioned as well, like, to treat them just like a person, because I think a lot of people definitely in society sometimes stereotype with certain people, young people or students or whatever, teenagers, like, especially, people can sometimes put certain stigmas on people. And I think it's nice that, you're just treating them like people. And I think that's the kind of the best way to be, isn't it? You're looking at them, you're looking at the people in a non-judgmental way, for who they are, and they're not going to feel judged and all of those things. And they can just kind of work on themselves probably in that space.
Yeah. And that's our biggest purpose, and kind of like the biggest thing that we try to do is to create an environment where they do feel comfortable enough to make mistakes. Because you don't learn anything. No experience is real experience unless you've done it yourself. So for them to make that mistake and to, do the stupid thing, like we had a kid sneak in a phone. The natural and logical consequence, which we're big on natural and logical consequences, but it was like the whole thing fell into place perfectly. Another kid stole the phone, and it turned into, I just want my phone back and I don't understand. And, and it turned into, well, you brought the phone in the first place, so maybe don't bring the phone in.
Yeah.
Natural and logical consequence. I'm not going to fight this kid to get it back for you. Like, I know you want me to. I know that that's something you want me to do, but I can't do that. And letting them sit with that and recognize that their actions hold weight. Anything they do holds weight.
That's it. And that's, in general life, isn't it? Like, you're responsible for showing up, and you're responsible for what you do, and what you do has a natural effect, doesn't it? On other people and yourself. And I think they're very, like, strong lessons to learn, especially, early on as a teenager in life. I kind of learned, I'm sure you did as well, like when you go into your first job, or you make mistakes or you're late or whatever, you kind of realize, oh, it is up to me. It's not up to my parents anymore to get me here on time. It's it's up to me.
Right. And there's all kinds of things. I mean, and like I said, because it's such a broad range of kids that we get, they all struggle with all kinds of different things. Some kids are truant, like really truant. Like we had a kid recently that was like had been to school one day all year, like thus far. And so it was just extreme truancy where you kind of sit there and you try to walk them through, well, why are you avoiding school? But our big thing too is to not try harder than they are. Like, I can't try any harder than you are. If you want to meet me there and you want to use me as a resource, I can be there for you. But I can't try more than you are. And a lot of times they'll take the things that have happened to them and make excuses. Oh, I have these horrible things and so I can't do X because of whatever, and trying to walk them through, you weren't responsible for the things that happened, but you are responsible with what happens next. You're responsible for, moving forward, and that's, I can't sustainably, you can't live the rest of your life that way because nobody's going to put food on the table for you but you.
Yeah, that's really vital. And I think, like, especially if you're in that victim mindset, then things are never going to kind of work your way. You can't point the finger at the universe, things not working, because I think sometimes people do that, and then you are kind of like your own universe in some way. You've got to put in that work if you want it to work out. You can't point the finger and say, "Oh, I'm not okay because this isn't working out," and X, Y, Z. And I think we can all sometimes go there or have been there probably, but it's like enabling those people to to realize that this is what it is. And I suppose, like, if you ever kind of, I suppose as well, like, it's that give and take. If they've got to want to put the work in, they have to kind of show up at the table, if that makes sense. If they've got to put in the work to change or to work on things. Right.
I've had that discussion so many times within the last just week with the kids that we've got, where I try to say to them, they'll ask me a question that I can't answer. They'll say like, oh, well, how am I supposed to change this? And I have to look at them and go, I physically cannot answer that question because the only person that can is you. I know that you want me to be able to give you all the answers because that's the easy way. The easy way, and really the way that we all want, is to just get that's why we Google everything so quickly. It's, how quick can I get the answer? So they want us to tell them what to do so that they can figure it out. But that's not what we're here to do. And really, it's not just that we don't do that because of our program. It's that we physically can. If the kid asks, how am I supposed to be this chill at home when my parents are psychopaths, and they hover over me and all they do is, criticize me. And I have to sit there and go, well, that experience better than I do, right? I've never lived with your parents. I don't know anything about them. So what can you do, in that situation? All I can do is give you the right questions to ask yourself, but I can't give you those answers. And it's not their favorite thing to hear, but it is, I think, honestly, the most rewarding part of it is just seeing in their eyes that they recognize what you're saying, that they recognize that you're right, but maybe they're not ready yet to kind of get to that point where they can think about that. And sometimes I'll call them out on it. You don't seem like you're ready to have this conversation yet. And more often than not, they'll say to me, I'm not, you're right, I'm totally not. But it's up to them.
Yeah, that's it. And I think it's like, must be rewarding when you see people grow, as a person, and they shift and they change, and that process of when you first met them, and to the end point, or even if you see them come back and then you see them change and things like that as well.
Yeah, we have our long-term kids, so we do have some long-term kids as well. So the ones that stay for longer periods of time, you get to know them more, and you see them, every week during your shifts, and so you get to know them a little bit better. And we've had one for a couple of months, and I she complete like it was a moment where she blew me away, where she had done something that she would have been completely incapable of doing in the beginning. When she had first gotten to us, it was like she was incapable of having certain conversations with her parents.
Yeah.
She made a phone call, and it was like her having this conversation with the parent that I just was like, who are you? What did you do with the kid?
Yeah.
And I and one of my favorite parts of the job is being able to say to them, that was killer. Like, you crushed that. Like, I want you to know that that is not something that you could have done when you first got here. And I think you know that, but giving them the validation. They're smart kids. They know. They know that they're making those changes, and they know that they need to make those changes. But being there to just say to them, like, I saw that, and that was amazing, is huge for them. They're just like, you did? You thought that was awesome? It's like, yeah, of course I did. You're killing it out there,
Yeah.
Just simple things too is just like mind-blowing. So that's, making huge changes is what we always want. We want who doesn't want to get a kid that's like, suicidal and depressed, that walks out of there like, shitting rainbows and glowing, that's what we want, but getting to that point is just not realistic in the time frame that we're given. So all we can do is the best that we can in that time frame. And of course it helps, and the kids are like, yeah, we want to get involved, but regardless, we try to do whatever we can to just get them to that point where they can just the crossroads, even just walking on the path, anything, just anything is better. Forward is forward. So even if it's slow, still forward.
That's it. And it's those small steps, isn't it, that add up all together over time. And sometimes, it takes time, and you can't expect like massive results straight away, can you? And it's that build in progress, and probably then being patient as well, and not getting frustrated with themselves, and just going with it. Like you must have met lots of different people, different backgrounds and things like that. Like, as young people, have you noticed? Like the mental health side of things is like massive, and especially now, because of COVID, I think it's definitely more highlighted in the media. Like, what is it that you think, like, kind of, young teenagers, need, like, as a person, growing up? Do you think it's like, role models and guidance, and someone to just kind of get them, if that makes sense? Because I think, like, a lot of people, who are teenagers, who might be in a bit of a certain place, they need that kind of guidance and something to strive towards, don't they? Or someone to give them that reassurance. Do you think?
That's such a hard question to answer, just because
we're all different.
Yeah, but I think overall, a lot of these kids are just, at least the ones that I run into, are just so sad. There's a lot of just like, and I see it more and more as, we get younger ones, like as I get older and they get younger, but it's I just see them, and they're so aware of everything going on around them. Like when I was 12, I was not aware of the news. I was not aware of anything political. I had no clue. If you asked me who the president was, I could probably tell you, but that's like about it. I was kind of like, a bill? Can I go play with that rock? Like, I was not, and so the kids that we have now are like so hyper involved, which is great in one aspect, but it's terrible in another, because they feel this weight. They feel this weight of like, oh, we're the future generation. We have to make these changes. We have to do these things. One of the 13-year-olds we had was talking about her political involvement and how she needed to be, invested in this. And I was like, you're not even anywhere near old enough to vote. Like, why are you thinking about that? But they are. And so there's a there's a tremendous amount of weight on them, and they stop being kids so much younger now. And our favorite thing as a staff collectively, I can 100% say, is to just let them be kids. They do the dumbest things, and it's like our favorite part. We had a bunch of like older teenage boys that were just so like too cool for anything, and we were like, we're going sledding, and we don't care, you're coming with us. And they had the best time. I mean, to the point that they were like rolling down the hill in the snow, like just behaving like they were like 14-year-olds. And it was so crazy. It was like the first time they had done that in so long, that they just came home and they were like giddy. They like didn't know what to do with themselves. They were like making stupid jokes. They were being like, what people would assume like super immature, or whatever, but it really wasn't. It was just them being their age, so I feel like there's so much pressure on them now, it's a catch-22. It's a good thing that they're aware of that, but it's a bad thing that they feel the pressure to make the changes. And that's too much. So really, I mean, as a society, I feel like what they really need is to feel like they have not only the right, but the ability to continue to behave their age. To play with Barbies, to play a computer game and not worry where your next meal is coming from, to not have that on your mind. So that to me is really a huge and necessary change that needs to take place, because the age is just getting younger. They're getting they're too aware.
Yeah. That's it. And I think that's something that I've picked up on, I think, in some kids. And I've always kind of been very aware, but as a person. But I think if I can put it to words, if I was growing up now, like as a teenager, there's a lot of overwhelm, because like there's a lot more things on the internet now. Like when I was growing up, we had the internet, but it was like, dial up, and you went on YouTube. You went on YouTube, and there was like online games you could play. That was it.
Right.
There wasn't like Snapchat and all of these, device. There's just like Bluetooth, mobile phone, internet, YouTube. That was pretty much it. And MSN Messenger. That was pretty much it.
Yeah.
And then early days of Facebook, but I think, like you said, there's a lot of kids out there who they're an adult very early on now, and that inner child doesn't say to disappear, but it goes away a little bit, and they're more adult. And like you said, kids still need to be kids, and it's even important for adults, to have that inner child where they can do something, to be able to access that place. Because we all have it, don't we? We can all mess around and play around and stuff. But I think that's really important what you mentioned, that we look at that and it's addressed a lot more. Because I think, like you said, kids who are like 12, 13, they know what's going on in the world. They feel they're under pressure. And like you said, it's that catch-22. It is good in some sense, but then the other side, a lot of people I've spoken to feel under pressure to figure out, that they need to have their shit figured out, that they need to know what job they're going to be doing in life and this kind of stuff. I think that's, a lot of overwhelm, especially, right. I mean, social media is great, but there's a side to it where people are looking at it and they're seeing what people are doing and what they have, and they feel like that they need to be doing that to have that. Do you think?
Oh yeah, the amount of kids that come in and say, I want to be YouTube famous, I'm gonna be a TikTok star, and it's crazy to me, because it is totally possible for them to make money doing those things, but they're so, and that's the hard part, is that they're so focused on it, that they're so aware that they need to make the money, and they're 14 years old, so it's not a bad thing for them to be aware. I think that's not an issue at all. I mean, it's better than being completely unaware. I think my generation, I'm a millennial, so I was, born in the early 90s. So I did not have any concept of awareness of anything. No clue. So for me, to see them and see them being so aware, it's something I could totally applaud and something that I could totally sit there and go, absolutely, it's something we could all learn from. But I feel like as, and I hate to say it this way, but I feel like as the adult in this situation, not that I'm like, the best adult in the world, but like as an adult, I feel like we need to look at that situation and say, like, absolutely, you totally have the right to know what's going on, but you should not feel the responsibility to make those changes. And if you want to make those changes, if you want to do those things, if you want to be part of that, awesome. But that should be something that's an option, not something that feels like a requirement. And it's, and I just keep coming back to the idea, like, we need to do better, not just for everybody around us, not just for, the planet as a whole, not just for the country or for, whatever, it doesn't matter. We just for the people under us, that we are supposed to be looking out for them, and I see them, I don't feel, I'm like old enough to be their mom at this point, but like, I feel like sometimes where I'll look at them like they're like little siblings, where I'm like, that's just not fair. Like if I had some, sibling younger than me and I look at that, I'd be like, no, you should not be worrying about, what, if you're going to even have food for tonight. You should be worrying about who's going to date who on that stupid TV show that you're obsessed with. That's what you should be worrying about. It's the level of concern that they have. It's almost like it's not it's like it's a responsibility for them. It's a requirement,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they're really good points, and I think I've seen that a lot more as well. Especially, with younger generation, they feel like it's their responsibility to put the world to rights, to change.
Yeah.
I think with global, people like look at global warming and things, and you see all these groups of young kids who, creating these groups and things like that.
Yeah.
And there is this, they feel like they're responsible to, to do something. And it's a lot of pressure, and it's like, you don't have to, like, and I think like you said with the young people trying to figure out, what to do and to be like a YouTube star or like TikTok, which can happen, but
totally.
but I think in some sense that can be, it's a double-edged sword, because that's a lot of, if that did blow up with somebody, it's a lot of what's the right word? It's a lot of attention on them, and you don't really know who they are yet, and
no, right.
It can be quite damaging in some sense.
Yeah.
And okay, you might get a lot of money doing that, but why is it? There's got to be that why behind it. Why are you doing that? There's like a deeper meaning for it, not just for the money.
Right. I think especially for those kids at that age, you look at the kids, like I grew up watching Disney Channel because that's what I did, and I was in a unique position when Hannah Montana, so Miley Cyrus, when she became famous with Hannah Montana, I believe Miley Cyrus is quite literally 9 days older than me. So like,
yeah.
Or I think she's younger than me or something. So we were literally the same age. And when I recognized that, I think I was like maybe 13 or 14. And as she started to kind of spiral downward, after Hannah Montana ended and, the way that things started to go, and it was like watching her entire life implode, and I remember sitting there just even at 16 being like, that's a lot of pressure. Like, that's a lot of pressure. And you look at these child stars, even like Lindsay Lohan and
Macaulay Culkin.
Yes, these kids that are, it's so much responsibility, and they're expected to be able to, and I can't even do this. They're expected to be able to like produce, content or whatever it is, a product, just like one thing after another, after another, after another. And I find myself sitting down and being like, oh, I have to do 3 things in a row. Like that's a,
yeah. Yeah.
How do we expect those kids to do it? And so watching them, you look at, and it's harder as an adult to try to explain it to them because they don't have the experience.
That reasoning. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't have, the hindsight that I feel like as you get older, you have. So though, you look at these kids and some of them have, not any of ours, but like, you know, some kids that I've come into contact with have, you know, totally been like, I have 1.7 million followers on TikTok. And I'm like, cool, you know, like,
Yeah.
and then I watch them sort of fall apart, you know, who am I? And if I don't do this, nobody will like me. And you know, it turns into just the desperation of trying to meet a need that they can't meet.
Yeah, that's it. And I think like it's that gratification because it feels good when you get likes or if you post something and it blows up and all of that. And I think that, I mean, I don't pay attention to that at all. Like me as a person, like, you know, likes or follows or anything like that. It's not what my motivation is for the content that I do. If I get follows, if I get follows, if I get likes, I get likes. And you know, I'm grateful for the audience that I've built up and the connections I've made. And you know, it's like what you give out, you get back. But
Right.
if your main motivation is just to get likes and to feel good about, you know, getting famous or known,
Right.
there's a double-edged sword to it because, you know, it's your self-esteem. And if you don't get that hit, then you're like, oh, I'm not good anymore.
Right.
So kids need to be careful, don't they, in that area of things. And it's like, you know, you mentioned Miley Cyrus. I think she was like no older than 10 years old, I think, and she was singing with her family. And
Yeah.
I think some people who get massive success straight away and all that money and fame straight away, like you have everything all sorted out, and life it's like, you know, a build up. You know, you do things to build up to getting that, attaining that, and it's like when you have that all straight away and everyone knows who you are,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot to kind of take in. And I think I mean, Miley Cyrus, I think she's okay now, but like she still has to have like regular therapy and stuff. Like she was on Joe Rogan and she talked about it.
Yeah. It goes back to just basic psychology, where you've got, you know, Maslow's hierarchy.
Yeah.
And self-esteem, even though it's the fourth level, it's, you know, the need for respect and for like I don't want to say reputation, but I feel like it's reputation. Like the need for respect and like to have like a good reputation or the kind of reputation that you want is so important in kids, and it precedes real self-esteem and like dignity in adulthood. So you look to the people around you to provide you with the correct response, to guide you in a way that provides you really with real self-esteem as you get older. You know, and so when you have a situation like with Miley Cyrus, where it was like her parents told her that her dignity and her self-respect came from providing quite literally content, and I assume that that's not what they intended to do, because I don't think any parent is, for the most part, intentionally doing these things, unless you're, you know, completely evil and that happens, you know. But you know, you're you know, that's what they're providing, and so you put into these kids' heads really young, you know, your reputation and your respect comes from being able to provide something to someone else, which then starts to break down just at the second level of safety, you know, safety needs. You know, you no longer have the ability to have emotional security because it's toxic. You've created an idea in your head that any relationship you have is based on what you can provide to someone else, and so that breaks down your emotional security, and then you don't have any way of relating to anybody else other than to just understand that everything that's happening is toxic, and it doesn't matter what you do because you're all messed up now. You know, and it starts really, really early, you know, from the very beginning, and it's really important that we're mindful of that. You know, it's even just me being in a staff position, you know, where I'm just looking after these kids for a short period of time, I have to be mindful of the things I'm putting in their heads because it matters. And especially it matters now. You know, the teenage years are the most, for lack of a better term, hormonal time in your life, where your brain does not know what's going on. You know, you're experiencing such intense ups and downs, and planting something as simple as, you know, that shirt or that color doesn't look good on you can completely change the way that they live the rest of their lives. You know, that's a small example, but I can't imagine, you know, a parent saying, you know, you're worthless to their kid at that age. because that would set you up for failure for a good long time.
Yeah, no, that's definitely key what you mentioned, and I agree. And I think it's so important, especially in the role that you play as well, and the things that you say to these people, because like you could say something so simple but have such a dramatic effect on them and their self-esteem and how they perceive themselves to be, and then that can domino to probably the relationships that they have, because they're thinking that they're a certain way based on something they've been told, and then they then attract certain kinds of people in certain situations into their life because they have these set of irrational beliefs which aren't reality. And it shows you, like you said, from an early age, you mentioned like Miley Cyrus and that kind of thing, and how it can kind of distort the way that you think, because you feel like you have to provide, and then go into attract some people in relationships. And I think that's one of the key things as well, as a young person, because like how you grow up and the things, modeling your parents and how you see things in the environment all has like a compound effect on how you are, isn't it? And the relationships that you're going to have.
Yeah.
So, like you said, it's really important that people, bring up their kids in the right way, or provide, services for their kids where they can grow. And because ultimately, like, you have like a set responsibility in their life, in your role, and for how they're, going to probably apply for a job or have a relationship, etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have ideas, and it's a good thing, the kids that we have, they have new ideas that we haven't thought of before. They'll come up to me sometimes and they'll, well, what if we just did it this way? And sometimes I'll look at them and be like, that's so smart. I didn't even think of that, because they have these ideas. And so they want to be heard and listened to. And I think the level of responsibility is really the key in it, that the level that we expect them to be responsible has to be proportional to the level they're at. We can't expect them, I don't expect our kids to do more than their chores sometimes. And it's not dependent on their age all the time. It's dependent on where they're at too. So we have some kids that are, 16, 17, and they'll take the trash out, and then they'll have a hard time following a basic rule later. And it's important that I sit there and look at that, and that I'm aware that, that there's some things shift during that time frame. Within 30 minutes, it really could be, the fact that they took out the trash and they were ready to follow basic rules and then go above and beyond, and then they had a terrible phone call with a parent. That will set them off, and it'll create a problem, and then their level of responsibility drops. They're not capable right now of being responsible because they're too wrapped up in something else. And I think that, coming from, my parents are Gen Xers. And so they, their level of understanding and the way that they expect things is different, and that's not a bad thing. It's just a different thing. They expect different, they never asked for help. Gen Xers, that's a key part of who they are. They didn't ask for help. They just did it themselves, and then they figured it out through trial and error, and they didn't ask for help. And then, millennials came along, and we started getting, and I can't speak for this because I never really got any of these, but, we got participation trophies. And so Gen Xers saw that, and they were like, oh, you guys are so soft. And half the time we were like, we didn't really care about the participation trophies. It was like, we just liked the fact that they cared that we were involved, so then it dropped down into Gen Zers and the kids underneath us, where they still feel that need to be involved, but the level of responsibility that we seem to have let happen has become disproportionate to where they're at. Sometimes they just can't handle more than getting out of bed on time, and that's okay. We're all in that position, and it's up to us to also meet them halfway and say, you're communicating to me that you need some assistance. So let's talk about this and let's make a change for the rest of tonight. And then we'll talk about it tomorrow if you want to. It's a constant. You have to constantly be reassessing. You can't just make a list and go, all right, it's going to work every time. It just doesn't work in real life,
Yeah. No, that's it. And I think they're really key points you mentioned. And I think like it's really important that people look at, Gen X and millennials and Gen Z. And once you start looking at them, you then can understand the person a bit more of where they're kind of coming from.
Right.
And I think like I've definitely noticed that like, like I'm millennial, you're millennial, and I sometimes connect with a lot of other millennial people, and you just kind of gravitate sometimes to that kind of tribe of people just because you are millennial, even though, you're probably different parts of the world or you don't know the person, you're just in that kind of same band where you might think very alike.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine.
No, I think that it's interesting that you say it too, is that like millennials, I feel like, are really willing to talk to anybody. Like I get along really well with Gen Xers. I have the same kind of sarcastic sense of humor, and like sometimes it's real deadpan, and sometimes I'll say something like that to the kids at work and they'll stare at me like, are you serious? And I'm like, no, of course I'm not. You have to be so careful with the sarcasm, but like, I get along really well with Gen Xers. And I think that our society sometimes gets hung up on the idea that we're all the same, and we're not. And that's okay. I think that we try to solve the problem of diversity by saying, well, we're all the same. And that's not how you solve that. There's no problem in diversity. There's beauty in that. And so if you try to say, oh, we're all the same, you've taken away things that make different people unique. Every single person is unique, but then you have, groups inside of that. People that live in New York, will swear by Dunkin' Donuts coffee, like to the point, they'll never ever come to Starbucks and they won't do it. It'll be a way bigger deal. But like, people in California will swear by In-N-Out. In-N-Out's the best burger in the whole world. And then you have people from, southern parts, and there's differences and there's good things in the differences. And I think because we hyper focus sometimes on our differences, we only see them as negatives instead of seeing them as positives. I have weaknesses as a person. There are some things that I just can't deal with, because we all have limits and we all have certain things that just set us off. And then sometimes I just have things I'm not good at. I'm not good at geometry, suck at geometry. But there's people in the world that are really great at geometry, and thank God they are, because otherwise we wouldn't have buildings. And I like buildings. So, there's differences. And I think that if we look at them from that perspective of they're different, but they're not bad, it tends to solve a lot more problems than we think.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great point. And, like having those differences is okay, and that's normal. And, everyone's got their own perspective and everyone's got their own culture.
Right.
And like you mentioned, like in New York, like a lot of people like Dunkin' Donuts and the coffee and stuff like that. Me and my friends went to Dunkin' Donuts and we got some donuts, and they were like dry cardboard. And I was like, what's this all about? I mean, I apologize if people are listening and they really like Dunkin' Donuts, but the ones I had that particular time were like cardboard and they were dry. But yeah, that's it. And people all have their own keel. Everyone has their own perspective. And I think when you respect people's perspectives and things like that, there's a lot less problems and a lot less conflicts, because it's like, difference between Starbucks and probably another coffee brand. If you like Starbucks, you like Starbucks, that's fine. Like that's cool. I mean, we have a lot of rivalry in England over like football teams, like soccer teams. And, that's a whole nother rabbit hole, but you see that with sports, and teams. And it's like, well, you've got your team that you like, your perspective, that's fine. And I think it's so important that we can kind of go to that place where, you just respect someone else's opinion and who they are because they're, that's just how they are. And
Right.
and we, like you said, we have to take responsibility for ourselves and look at ourselves and our weaknesses and address them because, we're human. And, it's okay to have weaknesses, isn't it? Like, it's okay, we're not robots.
Right.
I suppose you have to probably address that in your work with people and, say, it's okay. It's okay to have X, Y, Z or whatever, and sometimes, sometimes we can probably label ourselves as a person sometimes based on that, but they don't really define you as a person, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I tell the kids this all the time, whatever floats your boat, as long as it doesn't sink mine. That's the biggest thing that I try to at least, pass on. And I pass that on to everybody I can. I don't know who told it to me, but kudos to them because it's one of those things that stuck with me. I don't care what you're doing on your boat, just don't shoot at mine. If you want to drink Dunkin' Donuts coffee and have terrible donuts, go for it. Like and I'm 100% with you. Dunkin' Donuts are terrible. Am I still going to eat them? Absolutely, because they're still donuts. But on the scale of good, good donuts. But
yeah, exactly.
It's the idea of if you want to have those donuts, there are people in the world that want to do different things than you, and that's a good thing. If you don't do it, and everybody did what you did, then we wouldn't have all the other things that came from the differences of other people.
Yeah.
It's a simple walkthrough that sometimes I think people get stuck on.
That's it. And I mean, I've got a friend who likes Krispy Kremes. He likes Krispy Kremes, and it's like, it's okay. It's okay if that's what you like, then that's what you like. And I think, we live in a world where people are so easy to put things on social media, and I'm not knocking social media at all because I love it and I use it, but it's how you use it. And if somebody puts something on there that they like, then that's fine. But I think you have to be very mindful, as you said, of what you say, how you say it, because there's always a domino effect from you saying something. And it's your reputation as well, because you can put your neck on the line and, it can have consequences.
Yeah. And I thank my mom for, putting the fear of God in me that, growing up, I didn't have a cell phone until I was 16. That was the first time I had a cell phone. I joined MySpace. I aged myself.
I remember that MySpace.
Yeah. At 15, and I did it against my parents' will. And, it turned into this way bigger deal it needed to be, but I ended up getting a Facebook for the first time when I was about 16 and a half. And my mom, was just sat me down and was like, listen, anything you put on the internet is on there forever. And me being me, I was like, what do you mean it's on there? Forever? I can't delete it? And she was like, no, it goes to, it was fear mongering a little bit, but it was, it goes to a warehouse and it stays there forever. And I was just kind of like, I didn't realize that the internet cared so much about me liking Rihanna's new album. But I mean, okay, it was like that, but it kept me from making a lot of, I feel mistakes that I saw a lot of my friends make, where it was posted something you shouldn't have posted, or posted, just ran your mouth and didn't think about what you were saying, and how it had a long-term effect, and so it kept me from really, but at the same time, it also kept me from saying the things that needed to be said. It kept me from saying, we shouldn't be doing, we should plant more trees, not that would really change much, but, but kept me from saying the things that I should have said as well. So I think, like I said, I feel like it's just all of life is a balancing act, where, there's two extremes and you got to figure out where the middle is and try to walk it, so that's kind of the only thing you can do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's definitely a balancing act. It is definitely all about balance and recognizing that, but that balance as well. It's definitely important. That's a really great point. And I think that's something that, we're kind of learning, I think, as we go through life, that kind of balance with things. how much are you doing something, how the activities you engage in, the things you eat. There's like a whole massive spider web of it. So I find that balance, happiness and all of that as well. I'm just thinking about something I was going to say. Yeah, you mentioned like the internet. I was thinking, I had something on my Facebook memories pop up, and it was like 9 years ago you posted this.
Yep.
And I looked at it and I was like, I said that? I was like, why did I say that? Like, it was something about, I think I said something like 9 years ago about, there's just so many teenage girls getting pregnant or something like that. It was just like a rant. I was like, what was I doing? Yeah. And like you said, it's quite scary how the internet is, because it's like, yeah, you put content out there, it does kind of stay there unless you do take it off. But then I'm not, specialized, but surely it is still kind of there, like an imprint of it there. But I think like with the internet, as you know, it's that balance. It's a balance with the internet and what you use it for, isn't it? Because I suppose with your work, you can connect and Zoom people and touch base with people, and there are benefits to it.
Right. And we do. I mean, it's been really, really helpful. Like as of right now, for the safety of really the staff, which we've really, really appreciated. Having Zoom available means that we don't have to send the kids out to therapy sessions, and everybody's much more willing to get on Zoom and have a conference with the kids, so that we don't have to expose ourselves and them and then the rest of everybody else, and the domino effect of I've exposed this, and then and being able to sit down on a Zoom call means you can connect with that person but still stay safe, and that's been super. It's also been really helpful too, because I feel like it cuts down on for lack of a better term, travel time. Which means that now you can schedule back-to-back Zoom calls and you can fit more people in, because you're not driving all over the place.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's definitely a great side to it, and I think it's kind of the way forward now, isn't it? As well, like I think there will still be officers, but I think they'll just do it to probably touch base every so often or something like that, or for training or something every so often.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think Zoom's great. I use it, to do this, so it works, and. Yeah, no, it's definitely great. And I was thinking as well, like, do you have any favorite books or anything that you like to read, or?
Oh man,
or that you've read?
I was so terrible last year. I set a goal for myself. I'm gonna read this many books, and I read one, so that went well. I'm a big fiction reader. I like reading nonfiction mainly because I like the idea of anecdotes, and I like the idea of I can't remember what those were called, but Aesop's Fables was the kind of
Aesop's Fables.
Yeah, but I can't remember what it was called. It's a type of book. But it was, they try to teach you lessons sort of within them, and I find that a lot of times
Fables.
Yeah, I think they're literally called fables, aren't they? That's
poems, fables.
Yeah, something like that, right? It's probably just fables, and in my head it's way more complicated.
Yeah.
But I like reading fiction because I sometimes, I'll spin on a problem, whether it's a kid or something personal or just in general, what am I going to do with my life? I'm almost 30, my life's over. Because I'm, a drama queen. But, it's, I look at I'll read these stories, and sometimes I'll sit there and I'll be like, oh, that's the answer to the problem that I have. Insert yourself into the story.
Yeah.
So I read a lot of fiction.
It's good.
I can't really remember the last fiction book I read.
Yeah.
So long ago.
Yeah.
But I have been I just finished reading The Law of Ambition by Louis Garcia. Yeah, Louis Garcia. Fantastic book. I'm not one to really recommend anything, but definitely good book. Does not mess around. I mean, if you want to look to change things and you want to get a kick in the ass.
Yeah.
That's definitely a book to read, because I put it down and I was like, oh no, I need to change everything. I need to do it right now. Definitely encouraging, but also very call you out type deal. And then I started reading, I think it was The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. That was another really good one. I got about halfway through and then I had to put it down because I was on a night shift, so I had to go.
Yeah.
That was another really good one. haven't really. I feel like there was another one that I read that was really good that I just completely forgot about. And I do try to read as much as I can. I set like a really ambitious goal of like 180 books I'm going to totally read this year.
Yeah.
I got 2 in, so
Yeah.
doing great.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, it's still better than none at the end of the day. And it's something that, I'm learning to do more as well, read when I can and just find that time for it, even if it's a few pages at night. But then sometimes I start off on a page and then, like you get hooked into it and then you're like, oh, I need to go to bed now. But those books sound really great. That Luis Garcia, I think he did a book called The Four Agreements. He might have done a book I read called The Four Agreements, I think. But the 4-Hour Work Week's meant to be good as well. Because I've got it, but I've not read it yet though.
Yeah, I think I got to like the 3rd part, and then I have this thing where if it takes too long for me to read, I'll get antsy and then I'll start to apply, but then only be able to half apply because I didn't read the rest of it. I'm that person that like starts, they'll say like, read all these instructions before you do it, and I'm like already setting up.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, I've already opened the bag, so it's late, that kind of person. And I say words, and they're screaming, and it's me. But it's I started reading it, and I started to apply it, and that was when I actually worked for like an office. That was when I worked for the company prior to. So I worked, our biotech company that I worked for prior. We had like I literally got to the point where I was like, this is so helpful. Like I'm getting way more done, So it really it does work for what I actually got to apply. But it's 2 really good ones.
That's great. And I think like sometimes as well, like you might read so far into a book and you can kind of already see where it's going, or you've already take what you need to take from it, and then you go, okay, that's cool.
Right. Which is also great.
You
can learn something from everything, right?
Yeah.
Even if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Still can.
That's it. I agree. I think that's a really great point. It's always a lesson to learn, from people or from books or, from experiences. There's always a silver lining to it. And I think as well, do you have any like role models or like mentors you look up to, now or growing up, whether that's like professionally, personally, friends, family?
I think when I was younger, I think I like looked at my parents like they were like they could do no wrong, and then as I got older, obviously I think that happens with every kid though. You look at your parents like, they're perfect and they've never done anything wrong in their lives ever, and they're totally not winging the whole parenting thing. They totally and then I think as you get older, you hit that letdown, where you're like, oh no, people, you hit the letdown, and I think I hit that letdown pretty hard, and I was just like, really, they suck, because they're people, like, wow. And then I came obviously back around, and I definitely look up to my parents a lot. I think they made an absolutely incredible life from a terrible situation. My dad moved around a lot. My mom had, they both had rough family lives, and they really created one of the most encouraging and growth fostering environments that I grew up in. It was just so nice. I think that I would have ended up in a way worse place than I think I did if they had, been completely different in how they were. For now, I mean, really my role models, they change, kind of just depending on who and where I'm going. I have, lots of things that everybody has a bucket list, not everybody calls it a bucket list, but everybody does. And I have some like business goals in my head that I want to do, like working at the job I work at is great. It's a nonprofit, so we make, nothing. So we really do make a ton. So anything that I can kind of do on the side is always really great. So I'm always looking for something that can make me something, So I look up to a lot of people. Like I've finished the first draft, of a novel that I've been working on for forever.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So I definitely look up to people that have actually finished novels. So
Yeah.
one of my college friends has a friend who wrote a book. So definitely look up to a person like that. She's published. She's a great book on top of that. And I have a friend who I've talked to you about her before. Her name's Kelsey
Yeah.
Henry. She's under, I believe everything is under the Positively Delighted. She's written 2 books. I've read the first one. I think it was Road Schooling. She wrote a book about her whole life of just being on the road and learning school and like growing up literally in an RV on the road. It's a great book. It was hilarious, made me laugh. And I was in part of it, like I'm not in the book, but like I lived through like sections of it. Like she goes through a chapter of like the story about a guy that she was like dating at the time, and you know, I was like, I know that guy, I was there for that. You know, it was like, super cool. A little biased, but definitely I think I definitely look up to her. She's the kind of person that, you know, go-getters, and she's a go-getter for sure. She's the kind of person that like she's always doing something, you know, she just can't, not that she can't sit still, she just doesn't want to. You know, she doesn't, not interested in wasting time. I definitely look up to people that not just people that are doing the things that I want to do, but people that are being the way I want to be while doing those things. So it's really important to also make sure that the role models that I'm putting in my life are the people that I want to be. Because if I put these people on a pedestal, I'm going to start to emanate them. I'm going to start to copy them. And so, you know, I'm looking at a person where I'm like, oh, I loved where you are, but I don't love how you got there. If I'm looking at it and that's the only role model I have, then I'm setting myself up for failure. So lots of YouTubers love Claire Siobhan is one of them. She does Sims stuff.
That's pretty cool.
The Sims, but I love The Sims. Totally something I'm you know, that I do. I have a friend, his name's Nick. I think it's Nick Brown, if I'm not mistaken. He lives up in Alaska. He does
wow, amazing place.
GoPro stuff. Yeah, it's a gorgeous area. He does lots of photos and photography stuff, and he was just recently in the magazines, people like that. I think Natalie Ellis, she's I believe a co-founder, like CEO, one part of I think CEO Boss Babe. I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but she's got lots of really great material and content. Love the person she is, love the way she's made her life. Natalie Bacon, another one, obviously Luis Garcia. So I have lots of people there. Some of them are my friends. I try to at least keep people that are close to me, that I can emanate and sort of copy, just because keeping those people around me is really important. Because, you know, we're surrounded by lots of things, lots of news and lots of bad news, and you know, lots of gossip and Hollywood drama, and you know, keeping people that can keep their eyes focused on the goal of what they want to do, and then, you know, to just do it is such a foreign concept to me. You know, I'm always the person that's like, I have to plan and then plan my plan and then plan my plans. I need 3 lists. You know, like the person takes 6 hours to pick out an outfit, but you know, having friends that are just like, I want to make a video, and then they just like whip out a camera and make
just
one.
do it.
Like, whoa. So I love those people. So lots of those people, I think I like to, and it changes, you know, sometimes I run into other people where I'm like, oh, I love what you're doing, you know, I totally want to copy your, you know, what you're doing and like your, you know, business plan. Give it to me, I want to know.
That's awesome. And I think, as you mentioned, it's so important to have, you know, the right role models, the right mentors, and you know, you can have more than one, and it's okay to change them, and you know, it's okay for it to be your family, your parents, your friends, whoever. I think as long as, like you said, you can draw from them and kind of model them and take bits and apply it to your life, that's kind of what it's about, isn't it? I think it's so important to be able to do that. And I think as you go through life,
it's important. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
You just made a really good point, is that it's important that people know it's okay to change your mind. You're allowed to change your mind. It's something that I feel like I tell the kids all the time, where it's just like I bang my head. I mean, not that I ever listen to that, but you know, it's great to be able to say, you know what, you know, change. I saw this thing a while back where they were saying, you know, people will say, you know, when you change your mind that you're a hypocrite. But the hardest part about that is that you're changing your mind based on new information that you were given. So that person is no longer a hypocrite. They're intentionally changing to be someone else. And I just thought it was super powerful, because it's, we're so quick to judge somebody that, goes from being, one thing to being something completely different. And we're like, they're just doing it, for the attention or for the likes or for whatever. When really they may have just stumbled onto new information and gone, I don't like that. I'm going to change who I am, and it's judgmental out there. But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no. I think that's a good point. Yeah. No, I think you've made a great point as well. And I think people, sometimes tunnel visioned, and sometimes people have their opinion and think, oh, why are they doing that? And it's like, well, people change, people shift, people grow. And, we're not the same people that we were a couple of weeks ago. We're not the same people that we were, a year ago. And it's okay to change your mind on things and shift. And I don't think, I don't think we're designed to stay in one place or to follow one suit. I think, we are constantly evolving and changing over time. So to change your mind and to be able to address something and to trust your instincts, trusting your instincts as well, and going, this doesn't feel right, I'm going to do X, Y, Z now, and not caring about, not worrying about what other people think about it, and being able to make those decisions, especially if you're a business person or something like that. You have to make decisions. You look at Gary Vee and some of the things he does, changes his mind all the time. So it's that flexibility as a person and being dynamic, isn't it? And changing things around. And like you said, it isn't easy, sometimes to do that. But I suppose the more you do it, you just it becomes easier. And like you said, with your role models, it's good to be around those people. It's good to be around those people so you can kind of draw from that.
Yeah. Now I'm a huge proponent of being able to do something, just to go ahead and do it. However, I am all talk and very little action. I have such severe anxiety with doing things that it just freaks me out. Sometimes I overthink it and I get stuck in my head. And people that can just be like, let's just do it. I'm like, take me with you. Like, I'll go. Just take me with you,
Yeah. I can definitely relate to that. My ex-girlfriend, she travels a lot, and a bit different now with the situation. But before this, traveled a lot, and I remember she just spontaneously was like, "Oh, let's go to France," and I was like, "What?" What
do you mean?
Yeah, and for me, I don't always travel, so I have traveled a few places, but I was like, okay. But I had that anxiety, I thought I was thinking about all the what ifs and I'm going to have enough money or what's going to happen. And it's like, once you kind of jump over that hurdle, you're like, oh, it's not so bad,
Right.
But like you said, there's a lot of things that we encounter where we kind of overthink it sometimes. I did before I started posting content, on Instagram and doing videos and talking about stuff. I'd overthink it 1,000 times, or I'd record it and then delete it. And sometimes and sometimes that happens now sometimes, and that's okay. Because I think, just the more you do it, it just becomes easier. Do you know what I mean? It's like anything. It's like me doing this.
Right.
I didn't do this for 2 or 3 years. I thought about doing a podcast 2 or 3 years. I didn't do it because I was worried about what people are going to think. But then, after the first 60, you're like, oh, it's not so bad now.
Yeah. I've been working on it, and it's something that I sort of took, 2020 was a dumpster fire all around. But I kind of at the very end was like, I have to salvage this somehow. If I can learn even just to do things before I start thinking about them, is maybe, obviously that falls within parameters. Don't be like, oh, I'm on the street. That's not, not that far, But I started to kind of actually reach out and do things. I do lots of. I've been a Sims player since the early 2000s, and it's just something that I love. It's just a game that I love. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous,
I remember the original one on PS2. The first one.
Yeah, I
The first one.
on the PS2.
That's the first one I had, and then I had Busting Out, and then Herbs in the City, and then Sims 2. I think it was. Yeah.
I love that you threw Herbs out there. I completely forgot Herbs existed. Like, that's how deep, like, I've pushed that so far back. That was horrible. Get out of here.
Yeah.
But I started playing Sims 2, and it was kind of an accident. One of my neighbors, I was fortunate enough to grow up on a cul-de-sac. So I had like 3 or 4 friends that lived literally walking distance from me. And so we would all get together, and my best friend, her older brother he was like he was like a computer engineer, so smart, but he played The Sims, and so he had it on his computer. And so when he was out of town, which was all the time, we'd all go over and just huddle around one PC, and we'd all be like, wait, it's my turn to tell my Sims. But we started playing really young, and I've always loved it, and I've always been like, I should do Sims content, like I should upload it on YouTube. And so I started kind of being like, I should just take baby steps. We're not, at a point yet where I'm like, I'm comfortable enough to like post things, but I found this group on Facebook. It's like Sims community group on Facebook, and it was like the best thing I ever did was just hit, because it was a private group, and I got nervous because I was like, oh my gosh, they're gonna reject me. Like, I'm not cool enough. Like, I'm like 28 years old, and still in my head, I'm like, I'm not cool enough to be part of a Facebook group. It doesn't go away when you get older. But I just did it anyway. I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna try. Like, I'm gonna see how it goes. And they accepted me pretty quickly, and they were like, short time later, they were like, welcome all of our new members, and there was like 80 people, and I was like, I am so glad I just like pushed the button and was like, go for it. It doesn't matter. And I've been trying to do that more often, and I'm getting lots of rejections, but that's okay. We're still doing it. And so it's forward, and I have to do the same things that I'm telling the kids. I tell them forwards forward. I also have to do forwards forward, otherwise I can't go into work and tell them that if I'm not doing it myself. It's just it's not how that works.
That's
they're not gonna believe me. If I can't prove it, they're gonna be like, yeah, okay, old lady, you're full of it. So
that's it. I mean, you got to walk your talk, haven't you? Kind of practice what you preach. If you're telling other people to do it, then you need to put that thing in as well. And I think it's just like you said, it's good that you took that first step as well, because I think that's what it's about. And there's sometimes taking that first step to join a group or do something or be a part of something is like the hardest step. And I felt like that when I joined groups sometimes. Just begin with, you're like, am I good enough to join this group? Should I join this? And especially like when you start a new job, and it's a bit like that kind of feeling, isn't it? And but I think I always say to people, whatever your passion is, or whatever whatever you like, there's going to be someone out there, other people out there who like it as well, and you can vibe with them, whether that's playing Sims or like a Sims group, or from joining like a networking group or podcast, whatever it is. There are platforms out there where you can meet people, and you might meet new friends you just don't know.
And that's what it turned into. It's just like I'll go on Facebook sometimes, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, there's another notification that I can answer because I spent way too much time playing The Sims. So it's like, people will ask a question. I'm like, oh my God, I could totally answer that. I had that problem yesterday, And I answer it, and I kind of half expected, because sometimes I'll join groups and I'll just be quiet. It's like, oh, okay, I joined, and now I don't want to make anyone mad. Like, I'll just blend into the background, And I was like, I'm just going to post whatever. And I kept posting, and like now I have like 4 or 5 like internet friends. I'm like, I'm friends. It's so weird to me, like that it all really does work out, And so I you say it all the time, you tell people that, it'll totally work out. Don't worry about it. But never, at least not for me. Like, I'm the kind of person that I can give great advice, but like to myself as a whole, like I'm full of, like I know how much shit I'm full of. Like I know, like, I mean, like oh yeah, right. Like I take advice from myself. Like you couldn't even, you forgot how to spell family yesterday. Yeah, right. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I know I'm full of it. So it's.
I think we all. Yeah, I think we all have that as people. We all. It's a lot harder to sometimes address things for ourselves or to do something for ourselves, when we tell other people to do it. I think it's a lot, harder for, say, tell other people to set goals, and then when we have our own goals, because we're still kind of learning about ourselves as well. But I think it's all a process, isn't it? And you just have to go easy on yourself sometimes and take one step at a time, really, sometimes. Because I put a lot of my goals or tasks that I need to do on a bit of paper, and then I've got quite a lot. And I then put them onto post-it notes and broke it down. And then I've got like 10 post-it notes around my computer screen now. So I'm like, just, I'm still, it's all a process. And I think as long as you're just patient yourself, like you said, it's patience and it's a process. Yeah. But I was thinking as well, like, where can people find you on social media, that kind of thing?
Oh yeah, I'm way more active on Instagram than anywhere else.
Yeah.
I have my handle is the Vampire Slater. My previous last name, it actually came from a middle school bully called me the Vampire Slater all the time, and it wasn't until I graduated middle school and moved into high school that I went, oh my gosh, he's calling me like Leia the Vampire Slayer, like hello, like he's doing a bit, and I was like, oh, duh. So that's where it came from. But I actually find it fascinating. It's what my maiden name is, Slater, so you can find me there.
Yeah.
I have some stuff on YouTube, not anything Sims related. I like to do GoPro videos for the time being. I live in Jacksonville, beautiful area. I like to go out and take videos, and sometimes I post them, sometimes I forget. But I think my link to that, I don't have like a URL or anything. It's just and Instagram, but that's probably two of the most active places. Other than that, I'm winging it.
No, that's cool. And I think you have a great profile, and like, the pictures you post are amazing. Like, you're welcome. And I love trees. I love that scenery. There's just something about it. It's so grounding. Oh, yeah. So I like some of the photos you've taken. They're amazing. But yeah, no, you're welcome. And I'll share your link in the bio for this. And it's been really great connecting again and having you on the podcast and talking about the things that we talked about. And I wish you all the best in everything that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. I felt very inferior on the list of all the people you had. I was like, wow, hope you don't take a hit for that. I apologize.
Yeah, no. Don't be silly at all. Like, no, it's I don't kind of like I think everyone's got their own story and something to say and something to share. Regardless of what someone's title is, or what they've done. Is everyone's kind of got a gem, gems to share. To contribute. But no, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I hope I was able to provide something. If not anything, I hope I made someone laugh.
Yeah, that's it.
That's what I'm here for. Comic relief.
That's it. But no, I wish you all the best in your day and everything that you're doing. It's really, really, it's really humbling, to. Yeah, no, sorry about that, Liam. My phone ended up dying, so we're back.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's been really great having you on the podcast, and
Yeah.
I'll put your details in the description, and I'll stay in touch, and I'll wish you all the best and what you're doing.
Yeah. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
No, you're welcome. But yeah, have a great day.
You too.